think it's a firstly intensely significant moment in contemporary history. And it's extraordinary. I think Trump has staked his presidency on it, on the success of arriving at a ceasefire and finding peace with Russia. So, when he began, even before he began in his election campaign, he actually accused Biden of starting the war or not preventing the war. So he has been very consistent, and not only him, his entire Republican Party, people like Vivek Ramaswamy and everyone else, they have basically said this is not our war, and this was anathema to the orthodoxy of New York, of DC, under the Democrats, who were the bleeding hearts, fully supporting Ukraine, lambasting Russia. So suddenly it was like a complete convulsion. And so this is where we are today. Alaska, therefore, is critical for Trump's presidency and his success. And the last 8 months have been a roller coaster between him and Russia. I mean, to the point that he has actually not allowed his Foreign Office or the State Department to handle the relationship. He has handpicked an envoy, Steve Witkoff, his golfing partner, to do the negotiation directly with Putin. So it's a very unorthodox, unseen. The first people who were shocked were the Europeans. They could not understand what is going on. They were very, very fearful of a Trump presidency because they thought they're going to be sold down the drain. So coming to the question, I think Alaska is intensely significant. I have always betted on the fact that by the end of this year, you will have a deal between the Americans and the Russians, regardless of the ups and downs or the highs and lows, because this is the nature of the negotiation.
Okay. Overnight, the press conference that the US president had, he says this, I'm going to meet him there, which is Russian economy, is not doing well right now because it's been very disturbed by this. Then he says very significantly, it doesn't help when President of the United States tells their which is Russia's largest or second largest oil buyer, that we are putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow. Obviously, it's not the largest buyer because he's not slapped tariffs on China to the tune of 50%.
Not yet.
Not yet. At the time of filing this report, I need to keep saying this. It's clearly he's signaling about India. So what is this? That we're going to hit your friend, so you got to comply.
Again, so he's using all the instruments in his armor.
Yeah.
Right. So we know the instruments that were used in the past. This is an unorthodox instrument. So the tariffs on India are part of his Russia strategy, a part of it. Not the full. I mean, we can discuss the whole basis of the tariffs, but a part of the tariff imposition can be ascribed to his Russia strategy. Now, it's debatable whether it will succeed or not, or whether it will actually have an impact. He's calculating that India will be forced to stop oil purchases from Russia. Now, supposing India does not, then what happens to the strategy? But yes, it is a signal to Russia that I'm going after you, but I'm also going after your friends. But remember, so far he actually has not gone after Russia like the Biden people did. The people who actually imposed these crippling sanctions on Russia was not Trump, it was Biden.
But then nobody expected him to go after Putin. He was supposedly friends with Russia. That was the entire Democrat campaign.
Absolutely.
That he is pro-Russia and everything. And now here he is going hammer and tongs. But then that's also part of what he is. He went after Elon Musk after Elon Musk funded his campaign. So there is no consistency in his attitude, behavior, policies, nothing. But what we are seeing going India, do you think Putin blinked because this is one of the reasons?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, the stakes are much higher. This didn't materialize in the last 1 week. I mean, this has been going on since January. I mean, remember, if you catalogue all the statements and meetings held just in February, which is less than a month after Trump took over, they were extraordinary. I mean, there was a rush of meetings between American and Russian officials. So the ground was laid at that time. Since then, in the last 7 months, the dialogue has continued. I would keep my eyes on Steve Witkoff on this side. and Kirill Dmitriev, the Russian RDIF. He's the economic czar. So don't you think it's quite interesting that the most difficult negotiation is being held by two businessmen, not by the state departments, not by the foreign ministries? There is.
Is that good or bad?
It's either. I mean, it's what it shows.
It's the reality.
No, what it shows is he's serious.
Okay.
He's not bound to institutional niceties that, oh, it's foreign, so that it has to be State Department, it has to be foreign ministry. He's saying, I want my job done. Witkov was sent to Gaza, Witkov was sent to Moscow. He meets Putin one-on-one directly. It's unheard of. And he's not a diplomat. Who is Witkov? Witkov is nothing but a very successful businessman who plays golf with Trump and commands 100% confidence of Trump. So this kind of empowerment and selection of the envoy is critical to the success of the mission. You can have on paper the foreign minister saying, it's my job, I will do it. He's out of the way. He's there, but he's not in the mainstream. So so therefore this impact of this tariff on Putin's mind could be there, but I will definitely not try to exaggerate its impact on Putin, because Putin's calculations are very, very different.
Pastor Saran, when career diplomats negotiate deals, they have a future, they have a long-term goal in mind for the country, right? You being a career diplomat and you have negotiated so much, you know this, right? Like, you think 20 years ahead, even if you're retiring in 5 years or the administration changes in 10 years, you know, and you're planning for the country ahead. But when deal makers, when businessmen come in, they are looking at immediate transactional benefits. So how is this good for America and for the world?
The American system does not actually have a kind of a professional foreign service like many other countries.
Partly they do, yeah.
Partly they do.
Yeah.
But most of their ambassadors are political appointees. They don't have one in India for the last many, many months.
Yes.
So it's a different structure. It's more presidential and therefore top down. And this is the way America works. It's a 4-year cycle. And every 4 years, the stables are cleaned and another set comes. So if you look at DC, it's just a revolving door policy. Today there is, all the Biden people are now professors in think tanks. And this will happen to them also after 4 years. So this is the way America functions, that they are geared and wired to achieve objectives which they put for
4
themselves.
years.
Yes, exactly.
That's it.
And so it's very normal to accept that the last 4 years were a mistake. I will do something totally different. So predictability, and if you're looking at a bureaucratic approach that what was the precedent, pehle wale ne kya kiya, I'll do the same thing, that really doesn't apply to the United States.
You've dealt with with America. You've been posted there. Even when you were in the PMO, you were part of several visits that Dr. Manmohan Singh had, and later as in the national security apparatus too. You've seen how after George Bush W, there's been a consistently upward trajectory of Indo-US relations. Is this a massive speed breaker to that now?
I think so. I think so. But we are not the only ones. You look at what's happened to the Transatlantic Alliance. It was the holy cow. It was the untouchable. It was the bedrock of the Western-led order, global order. Now, the first blow that was inflicted by Trump was not on India or China or Russia. It was on his own allies, the Munich Security Conference. And he started saying this also before January. And he had said this in his first term. But this time he went after them.
Yeah.
Basically, he said, you've got it all wrong. You're free riders. And he dismissed their Russia threat.
And J.D. Vance's speech.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, that was the sledgehammer to Europe. And I have been visiting Europe and talking to a lot of European scholars, before January. They were all extremely worried about what would be the consequence of a Trumpian foreign policy on the European alliance.
Okay.
They were even talking about the existence of the NATO alliance, the transatlantic alliance. They were even talking about that the time has come to maybe de-link ourselves from the United States, and instead of having a US-led NATO, to have a European-led NATO They even talked about issues about a coalition of the willing, that since Europe is large and diverse, a few of them should get together and handle their own security. So the French, the Germans, the Italians, they started asserting themselves.
Recalibrating now.
Recalibrating. So all of this was happening. I mean, so when we look at ourselves, it's better to look at what we are going through in a larger context to understand why it is happening. The question is, are we the only ones? Or is it part and parcel of a bigger disruption globally that we are going through? And I think we are going through a disruption.
So, but we can't, you see what happens when these kind of disruptions is you're looking for allies. Okay, NATO is suffering, EU is suffering, the others are also in the same boat as us. But we can't ally with them that, अच्छा ये हमको तंग करता है तो हम लोग सब एक साथ हो जाते हैं. Can't happen like that, right?
Well, some of it has actually happened.
Because of the FTA that you're talking about.
Yeah, and if you notice, our outreach to Europe suddenly got stepped up.
Yeah, it was very awkward to see that happening, but it's happening, yes.
No, you had this famous visit of Ursula von der Leyen with the entire commissioners of the European Union. Never in the history of Europe have all the commissioners traveled to any country. So Europe was suddenly feeling orphaned. So they started looking at India with a new, fresh perspective, which they never had done before. Earlier it was, human rights, this, that and the other.
Environment.
Prescriptive. But now you suddenly found that that umbrella under which you had lived for decades wasn't quite actually, was leaking. So yes, I'm not saying we can draw satisfaction from the fact that others are getting hit. That's not the point. But the point is, to make a policy response, you have to understand who you're dealing with and what is the overall situation. Because if you are making a policy response on the analysis that you're the only one getting hit and everyone else is fine, then there'll be a certain kind of policy response. But if you have figured that you're part and parcel of a bigger global disruption, then you will tweak and modify how you respond. So yes, I think we are, to be sure, at a difficult moment in the relationship. Something which we actually never expected. I mean,
but in your prescriptions, which you give us in your articles, you said not to get upset with what he says and not to react, not to be reactive to every statement, every press conference that he conducts, Donald Trump, right?
Well, one is a style issue and the other is a substance. You know the Prime Minister, I know him. He's not a person who tweets every day, not at least on foreign policy. It's very measured, and that's the way it is. I mean, that's the way he is, and that's the way Donald Trump is. You can't change either of them.
So forget the Prime Minister. All we're getting from Indian side reaction is a Joint Secretary drafting a statement, very anodyne, and putting that out. So every time Trump says dead economy, all we get is one statement, which is like...
Yeah, I think, look, everyone here is still wanting to play this carefully because the stakes are so high in the India-US relationship. I think what you're seeing is a recognition of the fact that, look, there is an asymmetry out here. You're dealing with a global power. You're not an equal, and you have to be realistic. Bravado and being rash and being kind of, thumping your chest or the table is not actually going to help. So that is why I think so far, and also I think it's all work in progress. I don't know where is the full stop in the Trumpian approach to India, let us say.
Keep squeezing?
Or he could relieve the pressure.
Okay.
So we can see both happening. Basically he's testing. Again, if I look at what he's done with China or with Russia or with Europe, so you can see all speeds of the car working, the brake, the accelerator,
entire gamut,
everything. So I think it is now after 8 months or 7 months that he's turned his attention to us, and we lived through a fairly nice honeymoon phase for the first few months, but now we're getting into his crosshairs.
May you live in interesting times, curse.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think what we are dealing with is so there's only one man in the world who knows what's going to happen next, and that is President Trump. Not even his cabinet officials. They're also the last to know, as we are. And if we give him the benefit of doubt, He's got it figured in his mind, what he actually wants at a very broad macro level. He's looking at the world as a chessboard, as a deal-making platform. He's looking at each country, how it fits into his bigger design. And so it's quite amazing that the only person who knows the next step is him. And but not even his, as I said, his officials.
You made an interesting point that when he came in, he had this single goal in his mind. Of course, many goals, but one thing is to end these endless wars. America's involvement in these endless wars. That was one of his earliest things. Then, of course, comes in that Nobel le aao, ye le aao, wo le aao. All that is there, of course. But ending these America's endless wars, where does India fit into this now?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Because I think you're getting closer and closer to explaining why what is happening. But just to step back a little bit, he was the president who came in amidst a lot of adversity in 2016-17. And the first thing he did was, I want to withdraw from Afghanistan. And imagine at that time, the US administration dealt with the Taliban and signed an agreement with the Taliban in Doha. And people were aghast that here is a superpower which is actually saying, I'm leaving. And they had no problems in dealing with a non-state actor like the Taliban, which is just a ragtag outfit. And they handed over the power. The execution was done by Biden, but the agreement was signed by Trump. So this thing about America getting enmeshed in these kind of endless wars is very much, if you're trying to, let's say, understand Trump to the extent that is possible, one of the strands, I think, of his psychology is this, that, or some element of consistency, that he actually wants to get out of these endless wars. So we saw that happen, as I said, in Afghanistan. He did it. No other president could do it. Nor did any other president want to do it. And it was extremely unorthodox. And he used Qatar. He used Pakistan. He spoke to Russia. He spoke to China. It didn't matter to him. His objective was to get out. Now, in this presidency, he has been saying, even in this election campaign, that America is getting overstretched. You know, he doesn't put it in the diplomatic language, but you can see, because he's basically a businessman, he's a real estate developer and so on. But you can make out what he's saying is, look, I think we've been getting stuck in all these wars. I want to get out of them, number one, but I also want to try and, put a stop to them. And Russia was a classic example, I just told you, completely divergent from the Democrat position, completely. I mean, it's not a marginal change. It's a tectonic shift in the approach. And so when you talk to the American elites and papers like New York, Times and Post and, the liberals, they couldn't figure out what the hell is going on, because they were, when the invasion took place in 22, they were the ones who really went after Russia and demonized. And suddenly you have your own president who is actually saying that it wasn't Russia's fault. It was Ukraine's fault and it was Biden's fault. So this is nothing short of a political
earthquake. But he
earthquake.
keeps changing that too. Suddenly Zelensky becomes enemy. Within a week, he's back to talking with them. He's back to arming Ukraine.
Yeah, but I think these are tactical day-to-day shifts. But let's not forget the strategic goal. And I think that he seems to be very consistent of getting this war ended, finding a ceasefire. And by the way, the justification, whatever he's giving is giving, but within his coterie, in inner circles, you have two strands of people who are giving the ideological justification for this approach. One are the ideologues, the strategists, who believe that if you can succeed in ending the war and winning Russia over, or giving Russia some space, you have at least half a chance of extricating them from the Chinese embrace. So they have said it in as many words and also by imputation that the previous administrations simply drove the Russians into Chinese arms, which is what the Indians have been saying from the rooftops. That's the first. That's a strategic, ideological, like the big, picture. The second view which is coming out is that I need Russia for my economic needs. If Ukraine has minerals and this and that, Russia has 100x. So if I can get those deals there, if I can work with Russia on the oil and the minerals and the energy and the Arctic and all of that, then that's also a great advantage to me. So these are two competing strands.
So
but
why is he so
just,
angry with India buying oil from Russia?
I
Not
think,
so much with China.
look, the China, he hasn't yet come to China. He's made a few steps. He's taken a few steps. The initial, the flurry of tariffs, backtracking.
It's losing out to China in the trade war if he does
Yeah.
it, right?
But he hasn't yet opened the China file in the seriousness with which I think he has plans. He has shown his hand a little bit in the first 6-7 months, backed off. But I think he will come to China. China knows it. It's a matter of time.
Okay.
And so it could go either way. It could go either in the way of a a much more fierce degeneration of the US-China relationship, or it could go into a big, huge deal between the Americans and the Chinese.
What works for us if those two giants fight among each other and he takes his eyes off us? Isn't that an ideal thing?
I don't think it works that way because, as we are now discovering, India is going to get hooked up and caught in any kind of crossfire between any of the big powers, whether it's Russia, China, America. We cannot, put our head under the sand and say we're not going to be hit or we're not going to be affected. I think it's a moving system. We have to just be prepared for these dynamic shifts. But so on China, that's what I would say is something that we have yet to come to that relationship. Right now, I think he's focused on Russia. Earlier, he was focused on the West Asia, the Iran-Israel issue. But China, he will come to. I think let's wait and watch. So and on the other question that you asked, about why tariffs on India, we can discuss that.
Sure.
That's a bigger question.
Yes.
Deserving of some.
Please go ahead. Yes.
So I think there's more to it than meets the eye. It's not just a Russia oil issue because, logically it doesn't really make much sense considering that India has been importing this oil for the last 3 years, 3+ years. So for someone to just wake up one day and say, oh my God, you're importing
Fueling
oil.
the war
You're
machine.
fueling the war machine. And I've written about it and, look, if you want to be objective and truthful and honest, India is not fueling any war machine. The monetization of Russia's oil and gas wealth was not done by India. For the last 75 years, we have not imported any oil from Russia. Can you imagine? Our imports have been basically from the Gulf. When the going was good, it was from Iran, from the Saudis, from the UAE, Kuwait, etc. But never from Russia, despite the best of relations we had with Russia. Now, everyone used to ask, why are we not importing from Russia? There were other reasons for that. Our imports have begun only in the last 3 years. So who has actually built up the Russian energy empire? Who has built up Rosneft, Gazprom, all these, these huge state within a state? It's the Europeans. So today, to us to be told that no, you are fueling the machine is not true. I mean, to be polite.
Yeah, the gas and oil went to Europe.
They went to Europe and it was hundreds of billions of dollars which was being exported and they built up that whole Russian. So that's why I'm saying there's more to it than meets the eye. It's not exactly as if, firstly, I contest the proposition that we are fueling the machine. Secondly, even the fact that if I bring it down to zero tomorrow, the machine will collapse or that it will have some debilitating impact on Russia. I don't think it's going to happen. In any case, the imports have varied, have fluctuated, have gone down sometimes, gone up sometimes. So that's the second part of the thing. The third part is, I think, we discussed a little bit, is it part of his Russia strategy to put some mental pressure on Putin? Is it part of other unhappiness which he seems to have developed with India over some actions? We can discuss those. So it is being used as a stick, a convenient stick to kind of wrap India on the knuckles, which may not have anything much to do with the oil and Russia and so on.
Then
but
what?
just
It's
as a
that
pressure. pressure
we didn't
point.
give him the joy of saying that he negotiated the ceasefire. Is it that personal?
It could be. It could be. It could be.
Huh.
Also, I would say
Huh.
he was probably
Huh.
worried that the Pakistani whole episode which we had with them in May kind of disrupted his plans and didn't fit into his agenda for the world. And it was like a distraction, unnecessary distraction for him.
Hmm.
So it could be that.
Hmm.
It could be the personal angle,
Okay.
because the difference between what he said personally, not his administration, and what the Indian government, the joint secretary said
Yeah.
from the Indian side, and
Randhir sir, please watch.
and,
Okay.
and of late, of course, the Prime Minister himself
Huh.
told President Putin directly in June from Canada, was actually quite evident, the difference of approaches. So I think all of that has contributed.
In case Alaska doesn't fructify, because we're going to be airing this on 14, so we really don't know. In case Alaska summit doesn't fructify, or if the summit happens but it's not end of the war, in such a situation, Putin coming to India and PM going for Shanghai, will that invite more tariffs?
Look, they're two totally different things. Our relationship with Russia and relationship with China. The Putin coming to India, I don't think so. Actually, I really don't think so, because I'm pretty sure that we will have a Xi-Trump summit before the end of the year, and so unless there is a complete failure of Alaska, which frankly I would be very surprised if my bet would continue to be on a success. Of course, I could be wrong, but that's whatever little I can
And
understand.
he just said yesterday, he said, I'm going to Russia 3 times, he said, when he actually meant Alaska.
Yeah.
I just feel like, how do we decipher what he's saying? Okay.
So yes, let us look at a scenario where Alaska doesn't succeed, right?
Okay.
Now, even there, I would like to disaggregate, because then the reactions are different. Now, if it ends in a failure, I mean, if it ends in decision to meet again, or if it ends in an interim kind of a two-stage kind of process, there are so many possibilities. It's difficult to put a finger on it. But what I can see is that they are actually moving fairly fast, despite all the confusion that we are seeing towards something. Remember, the Americans are speaking as we speak to the Europeans. Zelensky obviously sees that something is going to happen. He's nervous, very nervous. But regardless of what happens in Alaska, the Prime Minister's visit to China will happen. And I think regardless of what happens in Alaska, an India-Russia summit will happen. Now, if tariffs are going to be imposed on India, tariffs will not be, the whole irony of the whole thing is that tariffs are not going to be imposed on us because we're talking to China, which is our number one strategic threat and challenge. The tariffs are going to be imposed on us because we talk to Russia, which is a friend, but it's their enemy. And so it's
and also on agri products and all that which he wants, or is that a sideshow?
No, then nothing can prevent him from imposing further tariffs. But if he feels that we are poking him in the eye, or we are holding a summit with Russia deliberately with an eye on him or America or the West, I can understand that he may get further enraged. But everything which we are telling him is that this is not the case. This is an annual event which has not happened since 21. He'll be coming, if he does, since after the first time after 21 to India. And if you're talking to him, I mean, in the last 7 months, your people have had more meetings with Putin than we've had. We've had maybe, 2-3 meetings. You had like 10 meetings with him. So why can't I? And I have
But
always...
America's never negotiated and never dealt with the other country as an equal. So for us to say
True.
that tum bhi karte to hum kare to kya hai?
No, but we are
Doesn't
also
work with them, right?
No, but we are also telling him that we are not dealing with Russia to be a spoiler in your scheme or in your approach to draw down the war. We are not here inflaming the war. That's what we've been saying to the whole world in the last 3 years, that we are not in that business. In fact, the people who are inflaming the war are, one could argue, is the Europeans and maybe the Chinese. But India has never been a part of this whole view that the war should continue.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching ANI podcast with Smita Prakash.
अगर हम उसको मस्जिद कहेंगे तो फिर विवाद होगा।
The issue is टूटा है क्या भारत?
400 पार का मतलब ये है कि संविधान खतरे में है।
क्या हम लोग ये निर्देश देते हैं कि फला को गिरफ्तार करके जेल डाल दें?
वही तो कह रहे हैं सब।
ये बेबुनियाद निराधार आरोप।
सच्चा सुनना चाहो देखो स्मिता प्रकाश ANI, it does not lie.